Hi everyone, it has been a couple of weeks since I put a video out, and that is because I was on holiday for a week. I needed to take a break from the bus, but I have been back at it this week and so much exciting stuff has been happening, so I can't wait to share all of that with you next week. But I thought that I would take the time to make a sort of Q&A video, because one of the things that I've been tracking and that I know a lot of people have been asking is, like, what is this costing for the bus build? What have I budgeted? Where has that money come from? How am I doing this? So, sorry, obviously as soon as I've turned the camera on, an aeroplane's flown over. It's such a beautiful day. It feels like summer. I'm sitting on my patio with a cocktail. It's lovely. Anyways, back to the dirty business of money. Before we get into the breakdown of the money and how much it's all costing, I thought I would answer a few context questions. So the first one that I get a lot is, why are you even doing this? And that is a very good question. I think that a lot of people my age, or even just anyone who, you know, we went through COVID and lockdown, and it just made me realize how much I love traveling. I want to move around. I want to enjoy my life while I am able to. And I did a mega road trip around Italy in my car, and I just had the best time, and I just wanted to stay longer, and I wanted to do that in other countries. But I realized that if you're always having to find Airbnbs, then that gets expensive. And also I have a dog who I want to bring with me, and so that limits your choices in where you can stay. So for me, building the campervan or having a campervan means that I can travel further away for longer, be completely self-sufficient, have more money to spend on the excursions and activities that I like doing, and I can bring Lemon with me, which is probably one of the most important things. If some of you have been watching my videos for a little while back when I was doing the house up and kind of videoing that, you'll know that I went to the is it the National Motorhome Show or the National Caravan Show in Birmingham, and I had a look at lots of lovely new build RVs and camper vans, and I think really what, you know, was very clear was that I do not have 60 to 100,000 to spend on a new build camper van. I mean, they're gorgeous, very brown, very plasticky, so yeah, but either way, there was just no way that to make my dream come true I was going to be able to buy something new. I did look at second-hand camper vans, ones that people had already converted, and another aeroplane, and I sort of went off buying a second-hand kind of self-converted caravan or camper van, because you don't know to what level somebody has converted it. I mean, obviously there are certain things you can look at and see what kind of electrics they've used and everything, but either way, whatever I bought I was going to have to put some more work into. And I think once I'd started looking at different layouts and different options and watching tons of YouTube videos, it was very obvious to me that I wouldn't be happy unless I kind of built it from the ground up myself, and it didn't make sense to buy something already converted for a bit of a higher price and then rip it all out. Better for me to just start with a blank vehicle and just build it completely myself. So like I said, I did quite a lot of research. I would say this whole journey up until now has actually been about 3 years in the making, and let's normalize the fact that it doesn't take 5 seconds for, you know, things to happen, for dreams to come true. It takes time. You have to plan and work towards things. And I think that's something that is very easy to lose perspective on when we look at Instagram, when we look at even YouTube, and we see time-lapse footage of everything, and it makes everything look easy and quick, and actually it takes time to be able to reach your goals and, you know, make everything come together. So after having done a lot of research for probably about a year, I was pretty certain that I wanted a Trekker bus. I had come across them online and I loved the fact that they had so many windows. I think for me, light is such a big thing. And I'd seen some really good van conversions on YouTube, and so I was able to take a lot of inspiration from layouts and finishes. And really, at the end of the day, the finish that I want for my campervan is that it is like a little home on wheels, but high-end. I want it to feel luxury. I want to not want for anything. I want to be able to seamlessly move between my house, which is like a tiny house, and the campervan. So for me, that means high-end finishes, that means not skimping on the electrics, making sure I've got a big enough off-grid power system, having a shower, having big enough water tanks to be able to sustain and support a shower, and having, you know, a full kitchen. So now that I've just said I don't have 60 to 80k to drop on a really nice, beautifully converted camper van, however I do still want high-end finishes and it to be a bit luxury, what does that mean in terms of how much is my budget for this build? So the budget, a number that I'm working with in my head, is 20 grand. That has to include the cost of the bus in it. In my mind, I had budgeted about £5,000 to £8,000 to buy the vehicle, and then the rest allocated to the fit out. And I'll tell you in a few minutes whether we are on track with that. So 20,000 for the entire project. Where does that money come from? Because I don't know about you guys, but I didn't have £20,000 just lying around. I think that it's pretty normal these days, a lot of people, especially myself included, living kind of paycheck to paycheck and still needing to, you know, try and invest money in my house and try and have some savings of some kind, paying off debts. You know, there isn't £20,000 lying around and there's no magic money tree to make that appear. So the reason that it's taken 3 years to get to this point is because, aside from trying to figure out how to build a camper van, the main question was, how am I going to make £20,000 to fund building the camper van? So I had a little bit of a wild idea, and that was rent my house out. I currently rent my house from the most amazing landlords. I've been here for over or about 10 years now. It's a beautiful house, but from the time that I moved in, it was quite dated. And one of the reasons that my landlords are amazing is because, you know, in conjunction with them and after discussion and stuff, they've been very happy, which, you know, obviously why wouldn't they, for me to improve the house, decorate, make some pretty big changes, landscaping, just really modernize it and make it into a really beautiful little oasis on the river. Obviously this was for myself as well, but with the sort of thought and the idea that if I could put my house on Airbnb for a few months in the summer, that would probably bring in enough extra income to kick off funding this project. Like I said, for those of you who have been watching from the beginning, you'll see that a lot of the videos at the beginning of my channel are all to do with house renovations, and that was in an effort to get this house to a point where it would be nice enough to rent on Airbnb and actually bring in some decent money. So that took a year and a bit of renovation, and basically all of my spare money from my salary went into everything. Landscaping, putting in a hot tub, doing up the patio, basically touching every square inch of this house. And I'm so proud of it. It's beautiful. I love it. But it also meant that last summer I was able to rent it out for a few months in the summer, and it did really well, and I ended up making about £12,000. Obviously some of that money had to go back into just maintenance of the house and buying things that got fixed, fixing things that got broken. Not that really anything got broken, but there's always upgrades to be done and things that are old that break. And then obviously some had to go to taxes. So it did leave me with enough to put the deposit and buy the bus, which was the whole plan. I was really lucky. I found Betty on Facebook Marketplace from a lovely woman in Leicester who had bought her from the council and was planning on basically making her into a camper van like I am, but never got the chance to. But she'd taken really good care of her. She'd been stored in a barn for the last 4 years, and so we just clicked when I met, and she knew that I was going to do what she had always wanted to do, so it worked out really well. And she was really nice and she gave me a fantastic price. I bought Betty for £5,500, which is kind of insane because all of the other listings for Trekker buses that I was looking at online were closer to about £10,000. I did buy her, you know, just as seen. She did run, they did take me on a little journey on her, but it was pretty quick, and they were very upfront with the fact that it did not have an MOT, it had not been run in about, you know, 4 years regularly, and there was probably going to be some work that needed to happen. So even on all of that, I still decided that $5,500 was probably a really good price, and I was happy to invest some money in repairs. One of the things that I find a bit mind-blowing when I was watching lots of YouTube van conversion videos is people buying vans and vehicles and then doing their whole conversion before addressing any of the mechanical issues or ensuring that they run properly, and then getting into trouble once they've got their vehicle and they're ready to hit the road and realizing that they don't actually have a sound vehicle. So for me, it was really important to make sure that all of the mechanical repairs had been done before we even started the build. Not to mention, I bought it in Leicester, which was about 2.5 hours away from my house. So actually, one, it needed an MOT, and if you're not watching from the UK, an MOT is like an annual check that all vehicles have to go through to ensure that they're roadworthy. And if you don't have that check, if you don't pass, then you can't take your car onto the road, or that vehicle. So she needed an MOT anyways before I could drive her home, and obviously we needed to address the other mechanical issues. So I've already spent $5,500 on Betty, and now she goes to the garage and has her MOT. I also asked them to do a full service on her because she hadn't been run for about 4 years, and she needed a couple of things replaced. She needed a new seat belt and a new exhaust pipe, and a sort of filter change and clean out. Anyways, all of that came to, just checking my notes, £1,800. Oh yeah, on top of that £1,800, I also had them fit a GPS tracker because for my insurance they asked for one, so it would bring the cost down. And also, I've just spent this money on a bus. I don't want it to get stolen and not be able to find it, so it felt like a good investment. So in total, without having done anything, I bought a bus and it runs, and it's cost me £7,500. Now, what have I spent to date on top of the £7,500 to bring us to today? Now, you would think that because essentially we've done demolition and we've added a few new bits to the ceiling or to the roof, but we haven't really gotten into the nitty-gritty of it yet. You would think that I probably hadn't spent that much. And to be fair, maybe upon reflection, it's not a huge amount. But so far, I have spent £3,381 to get us to this point, on top of the $7,500 that I just said. What does that include? Mostly boring things like tools and Sikaflex and drill bits and blades. I mean, just kind of like little things that you feel like shouldn't cost a lot of money and they really add up. Do you know I spent 60 quid on drill bits the other day just so we could drill the holes for the brackets to hold the water tanks in? You'll be seeing that next week, but that's quite a lot of money for drill bits. but we needed them, and they weren't horrendously priced, they were reasonable. The bigger things that I've spent within that £3,000 are solar panels. So 2 solar panels cost about £255. I got them in the Black Friday sale. The extraction fan, about £135 off Amazon, or Amazon if you're English. The wastewater tank was £95 and the freshwater tank was about £200. And then on top of that as well, we've had plywood, insulation, PIR board, and the buffalo board for the floor. So in total, all of those things plus the bus, everything I've spent to date equals £10,881, half of my budget, which I think is quite good actually. I think I'm okay with that. That's quite good. So I've essentially got another 9 and a bit thousand to play with. Although when I say I've got 9 and a bit thousand to play with, I don't actually have that £9,000 sitting there waiting to be spent. We are now another summer into Airbnb. I'm putting money from work into this. So yes, that's why materials are bought as the job comes, as we do it. And sometimes, because as is life, the project has to wait until the budget is there to be able to purchase the materials. So, you know, this is real life. This isn't fantasy land. But I do feel very confident that that £9,000 will actually cover the rest. I know that my biggest cost is going to be my electrical system, which will probably cost a couple of thousand. I do want a really high quality, probably Victron electric system. I also need my kitchen appliances, so I'm gonna get an oven with a grill and a hob, and then also a little fridge freezer. I also need to kit out the bathroom, so that's putting a shower in. And then of course there'll be more materials like, you know, plywood, and I need to do the ceiling, I need to buy the flooring, I need to buy new captain seats. So there's still quite a lot to go. I think that £9,000 is going to go quickly. And I think it's May now, beginning of May. So my hope is to have this finished by the end of August or the end of September. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take her out and use her before then. I've already got some plans. But yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think considering that if the budget or the cost of a coach built camper van with all of the features that I wanted was, you know, 60 to 80,000, and I'm gonna get what I want exactly how I want it for about 20,000, plus I get the enjoyment and the sort of learning of doing all of this myself and having this amazing project. And you know, Jerry and I have struck up this great friendship, and you know, it's really beneficial to kind of both of us and to everyone else that's helped and is having a great time enjoying this, and the fact that you guys are watching as well. So, you know, I think I'm really coming out the winner here. Yeah, I think that's my financial breakdown for now. I'm feeling pretty good about that. There were some other questions that I got in the comments that I thought I would also just address in this little Q&A video. So one thing that I get asked a lot is, what is she plated as? Because she is big. She's a big girl. She is, what is she? She is 6.5 meters long, 3 meters high, and 2 meters wide. And I think in theory those dimensions are they match up to something that's like a 4.5 ton vehicle, which you cannot drive on a normal car license in the UK. However, she has actually been officially downplated to a 3.5 ton vehicle. Now, that wasn't done by me. I don't know if that was done by the owners before. I don't think so. It may have been done by the council. We know that Betty was bought from the council in Nottingham. She was a mobility bus that they used. They might have they might have downplated her because of you know, maybe needing someone to be able to drive her who was on I think it's a C1 license, anyways, a normal car license. But that's meant the biggest difference to me, because it means I haven't had to go out and get a sort of extra, you know, add-on to my license. But if you're looking at buying a Trekker bus, I would say that might be something you need to look into, because that might make a difference about whether you can or can't drive it. Is she ULEZ compliant? For those of you who are watching from abroad and might not know what ULEZ means, ULEZ stands for ultra low emission zone, and because I live in London or outskirts of London, depending on who you ask, within London there's something called the low emission zone or the ultra low emission zone, which basically means that if your vehicle is older than a certain year or makes emissions that, you know, are very bad, then you have to pay a fee to travel within London, a daily fee. So Betty is not ULEZ compliant, she is too old. But I bought her anyway because I reasoned that, one, I don't technically live in the ULEZ zone. It is so borderline, like literally the road that I drive to come down to get to my house is not ULEZ, but then literally if I was to turn left down any of that road, I would then be in the ULEZ zone. So I have to be really careful about where I take her and how I drive her. But I can go anywhere, you know, outside of London. But my reasoning for that was the fact that I wasn't going to be camping in London, that's just mad. So it wasn't going to make a difference that she wasn't ULEZ compliant, because I wasn't going to be driving into London very often, or often at all. I have slightly been caught out a couple of times because I have driven her to Jerry's house and he lives in the ULEZ zone, and we've gone through the ULEZ zone to get to certain timber yards or building suppliers, and those times I've just had to pay, I think it's it's either £17 or £12.50. It kind of depends on where you're going within the zone. Anyways, I have had to pay that just so I'm not fined, and I don't do it very often. I've done it twice, I think, in the time that I've had her, so it's not the end of the world. But no, she is not ULEZ compliant, unfortunately. I hope this doesn't cause me problems in the future. So that is the sort of end of my Q&A. I hope that you found it interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is my budget realistic? Should I have spent more on something? Should I have budgeted? Have I not budgeted for something that I should have budgeted for? What do you all think? Also, not that I'm ever thinking of doing this in the, you know, ever near future, but it's also really important for me to feel like I'm building something quality and doing it right and things, because if I ever do want to resell her, I want to be able to make my money back, and also be confident that whoever is taking her on after me will, you know, have a sound, well converted vehicle. But yeah, let me know. How have you guys come up with ways to make money to fund your crazy plans and your dreams? I'm always up for knowing what other people are doing, getting ideas. If anyone's got other questions off of anything I've said, drop them in the comments. And if you're new here, welcome. Why don't you like and subscribe to this? Why don't you go back and watch some of the other videos? I'm really excited about what's coming up. Jerry and I are on a tear. We are getting this floor done, we are getting the water tanks in. Simon and I have got the diesel heater going. So Laurie and I went shopping for flooring yesterday. I mean, it's all happening and I'm really excited. So thanks for sticking with me, and I can't wait for you guys to see next week's video. Have a great week.